Hello, everyone. It is Friday, short week. I can't believe how fast it's gone, John, but welcome everybody to EP.6 of Teaching New Dogs Old Tricks on this Old Doghouse Logistics podcast. How you doing, John?
I'm doing good, Jeff. How are you?
I am looking forward to the weekend. Just a lot of work this past week. How about yourself? What have you been doing?
Short week for me as well. A lot of interesting people I had to deal with this week, so I'm ready to decompress myself and crawl in the house and just kind of chill out for a little while.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do that as well this weekend. Last weekend was just not to say that was bad. It was pretty good, but it went by too fast. Weekends always go by too fast, and the weeks
You
always go
certainly
by
do.
too
Too fast.
fast. Hey, we don't really pick topics. We kind of do everything ad hoc, try to be real as possible, but this is definitely one of your favorites, pitch slapping.
Yeah, that's the top of my list.
This is your show. So why don't you just start off? What is pitch slapping?
I'll tell you what, Jeff. Before we get into this wonderful topic that I love to talk about all the time, let's drop down some supply chain trivia for the listeners out there.
Let's
So,
go.
so Jeff, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you know what the Waffle House Index is? Have you ever heard of it?
I have not.
Okay. The Waffle House Index is an interesting report, and actually, the federal government actually uses this to determine when to send restoration crews back into an area after a natural disaster.
Oh.
So the index works like this. Okay. If the Waffle House is completely shut down, dark store, they don't send them in because the weather, it's just you're not going to get anywhere fast, right?
I know where you're going.
If the Waffle House is open but serving a limited menu, then it's kind of it's iffy. Okay. But if the Waffle House is open and has a full menu, it's okay. It's safe to go into that area and start doing the restoration work. And that's the Waffle House Index.
Pretty cool. No, I never heard of that. Has that been out there for a while, or is that just a new thing?
It has been out there for a while. I learned about it probably 2 or 3 years ago, and I kind of scratched my head on it too. It's like the Waffle House Index. I never heard of Waffle House Index. And and then the person who was telling me about it says, "Yeah, the federal government uses when to sit in FEMA." I was like, "Really? That's interesting," but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of it. Why didn't they just call it the IHOP or something like that?
Well,
Why the Waffle House? I mean, they're getting a lot of good promotional shit here.
the waffle houses are notorious for staying open all the time. So it literally it's one of the brands out there that will stay open all the time. Most of them are 24/7. And the thing, they're never going to close unless they're forced to close. And that makes it a really good barometer for when you're trying to clean up after a natural disaster.
Right. But you know something, now that I'm thinking about that, usually when, a natural disaster, hurricane, tornado, or something like that's going to happen, they send in all the power guys down there, right? But they stage them like 100, 150 miles outside the target area so that they don't get hit by the storm as well. So do we have like a target radius, like saying, well, Waffle Houses, if they're really packed 100 miles away, you know that a storm's going to hit X? I mean, where's that? I'm just thinking about the target. If you're 50 in there, I would say, nah, the further out, the more density these Waffle Houses are going to be because they're getting staged.
Yeah, I don't think it gets that far in the weeds, Jeff, but it's just a barometer like we talked about last week. We talked about barometers and kind of getting the clearest crystal ball you can get in this industry, which is about the color of mud. So
True.
So that's my little tidbit for the day. I was thinking about that yesterday or this morning, and I was like, I wonder if everybody knows about the Waffle House Index. Well, now you know, and
I do.
tonight when you're at the bar, you can wow your buddies and teach them about the Waffle House Index.
And you know what they're going to say? Why, are you hungry?
Well, let's jump into it, Jeff.
Yeah, let's go. Let's
let's
go. So,
let's talk about my favorite topic, pitch slapping.
pitch slapping. I mean, John, I think, since I've known you, uh, we've been talking about that on posts, uh, in our content, on other posts, how we respond. I mean, this is an ongoing problem that a lot of people, brokers, whomever, don't really see it as a problem. And I disagree wholly. Let's talk about that from your point of view, being a shipper.
Well, it's an inundator. It's a time waster. If you get as many as I do every day, then that's time away from your regular duties that still have to be done, and it gets frustrating. I mean,
How many calls do you get a day? Like emails? Do they text you on your phone? Do they call you directly?
Yeah,
What's the breakdown?
all of that. The last one I had one a couple weeks ago that called my cell phone. I was like, who is this? But yeah, I get probably somewhere around, I'd say 8 to 10 a day in various forms of media. DMs, emails, text messages, phone calls. I've got people who literally send me LinkedIn invites just so they can pitch slap me. Um, I'm like, I'm inviting you to get pitch slapped. Okay. But
That happens within 30 seconds of that connection too, I must add.
oh yeah, absolutely. I always had a random joke about it. I'd get a cold call, a cold email, and a cold LinkedIn invite, not necessarily in that order, but within a few minutes of each other. And I had one the other day that they had sent me an email, wasn't really pertaining to what I manage. So typically I don't respond to those,
Right.
because if you haven't done your homework enough, that I don't skin alligators or whatever you're trying to sell, then that's on you. And then the same individual sent me a LinkedIn invite with some commentary, and basically was kind of reprimanding me for not responding to their email. And I'm like, and how much business you think you're going to get with that approach? Because I'm thinking zero. So
yeah.
It's almost like, used to be it was just spray and pray, and they wouldn't do anything about it. But now it's kind of, these people getting kind of aggressive and wanting to know why you didn't carve out, some time to talk specifically to them about, their company that, is, one in every 10 is, the same thing. So it's just, it's annoying and it's frustrating. And part of the reason why I did get on LinkedIn a lot more aggressively at the beginning of COVID was kind of to, help educate people out there and say, look, I don't know if every shipper's thinking like I'm thinking, but I know how I'm thinking, and just hopefully educate them and help train them. I've mentored some young salespeople who've been in the industry a couple 3 years, and we've done mock sales calls, and we put, we even played with it a little bit. We put scenarios in there. I had one guy that his scenario was a sales rep had come in a couple hours before his appointment and was selling the exact same thing. Tell me why you're different. Or my customer called me and told me you dropped the ball on a load, and you're not going to survive for that. You just take the beating. And the kid did real well. He did. He said, if you give me another shot, I'll discount the next load and let me prove to you we can do this. So I thought that was a real good response, especially since he hadn't seen the scenario until I dropped it on him.
Right. And he's coming at you from a whole different angle that you didn't expect.
Exactly. It's a different approach. It's setting, I constantly preach about setting yourself apart. That's a good way to set yourself apart.
I agree, and I commiserate with you, John, because you know I came from your side. I think that's one of the reasons why you and I get along really, really well, is because I understand the complexity and the problems that you face day in and day out. Like yourself, when I was managing over $100 million worth of business, I used to get between, say, 25 to 35 calls a day that just bombarded me, and that's why I said at the beginning of this week, the worst day to call a shipper is the day after a holiday. I
Right.
mean, or a day prior to a holiday, because of the tasks at hand that those traffic managers, those supply chain managers, those logistics managers have in front of them that they must do. It's not, let's push it off. I
Yeah.
need to
No.
do that.
There's,
Walking on the floor, talking to all key stakeholders in all departments, talking to their folks, making sure that they're in the right place at the right time, that you have the coverage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They don't have time for meaningless conversations that's not going to benefit them. It's totally ridiculous. You told the story about a kid calling you. Somebody answered a post that I put out there, and this is exactly what he said. Well, you have no idea because you never got your ass whipped to get something done like myself. And my response to him is, hey, if your manager or your leader who is not a leader is more of a follower that has to whip your ass in order to motivate you, you're in the wrong company. Plain and simple. That's not a leader, that's a follower.
yeah.
His agenda is about himself, not about his people. And I was like, no, I never had that because I worked for freaking mentors and coaches who put their people first, that really cared about them, that had a training program in place. Not, hey, we need to hit those quotas. We need to hit 100 calls a day. I don't care how you do it, where you do it, but you need to do that.
Right.
Useless.
Yeah. Not only is he in the wrong company, he's probably in the wrong industry too.
True, because he doesn't know any better, because he didn't have the proper training to kind of, tell him what it's all about selling. I'm not a sales guy. I'm not, because I came from the operation. So I went to the dark side. Ooh, very side, it's like I did some of that as an account executive for 3PL at one time, that I did for about 7 years. And my boss, who was like one of my really, really good friends, he was a mentor, he was a coach, he was a disciplinarian. We didn't kill freaking phone calls all day long, and we killed it. We killed it because we dove into exploring different ways of gaining knowledge. We knew what our experience is, so we had to define our niche, our verticals that we wanted to work in, and clearly stay in there and not go outside of that, because you're not going to gain any real traction. Do what you do best. But so many people are all over the freaking place. Like you said, one guy was asking you something that you were like, what the hell? I don't even do that.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
Exactly. It's just you get all ends of the spectrum here, and unfortunately, the ones who do their homework and who approach it the right way, those tend to be few and far between. So it's a rare gem that you find if you find an individual like that. Because as myself as a shipper, the word partnership gets thrown around way too much. It's definitely watered down, but I've always done it. I've done it for every year I've been working in this industry. Is I'm looking for partners. I'm looking.
Right.
It's easier for two people to resolve an issue than it is one.
Absolutely.
And from that's not just all one sided. That's not, the broker has to be my partner and I don't have to do anything. It don't work like that.
Right.
So as a shipper, if my broker or my carrier comes to me and says, "Hey, we got an issue," then I've got to roll up my sleeves and do whatever I can do to mitigate that issue and to help. And that's the partnership.
No.
So I basically I live partnership without saying partnership, because if you're saying it, I have to ask you, are you trying to convince you or me?
Right.
So, because you
Right.
shouldn't.
How do you define a partnership? Number
You
one,
should.
how do you define that? And here's the other thing. You know what's lacking in this industry, John? And yeah, I'm going to go old school, but that's what the old Doghouse Logistics podcast is about. All right. So 30, 40 years ago, okay, when we had identified clients, we didn't have the tools today. We had to work our asses off. You know it, John, right? You had either you go to newspaper, or you had to talk to drivers. You had to talk to a plethora of people to find out who's in the industry, who's looking, what do they do. It wasn't just, hey, here's here's a list of companies. Let me just make phone calls. Easy shit. Anybody can make a call. Anybody out there in the world can make a call. But it's one thing to dive into the weeds, get under there, and really do some fact finding. That's
Right.
what's lacking in here. They don't understand that some will disagree with me, and that's fine. I don't really care. But I'm just looking at something logical here. How many phone calls are you going to have to make? 98% are failures, and maybe possibly 1 to 2% you might get a bite, but you're going to make 100 phone calls to make that happen.
Right. And what's interesting, you went back in history there, and I'm right there with you, because obviously for obvious reasons.
Right.
But the type of network you had back then is much different than the type of network you have now.
Rolodex.
You didn't have well, let me kind of boil it down. You didn't have cell phones, you didn't have internet, you didn't have email.
Nope.
So basically your network were people that you met face to face, sat down and had a conversation with, and cultivated a relationship. Correct. And then to your point on the cold calling piece, it's a small world. I mean, you like when I was working in Memphis, Tennessee, you either knew somebody or you knew somebody who knew somebody. And part of your conversations were built with people that were hoofing the streets. They come to the office, and, maybe they'd call you and set up an appointment. They'd come to the office, or, hey, you'd go grab a meal or whatever. And that's how you got to know people. And then I can tell you, just about every carrier broker conversation I had, we would ask about if they had seen so and so. Have you seen so and so lately? How's he doing? Have you seen Mary? Did she get that promotion? It was a family, and now we have a lot of tech, so that human element has kind of been pulled back.
Yep, taken away.
It's not as close there, and obviously if you're doing a face-to-face network, you're going to be limited by your resources to some degree. Well, now, like LinkedIn, I mean, I know people all over the world. And I would not have known them had it been back in the past, because obviously I'm not traveling all over the world. So we focus more on relationships there. And again, we talk about relationships. That is the best foundation you could ever have in this industry. I don't care if you're a shipper. I don't care if you're a sales rep. I don't care what you are. You're only as good as the people you know. You're only as good as your tribe. And those are the people who are going to help you get out of the ditch, and you're going to help them get out of the ditch. And that's where that partnership comes, that you don't have to talk about. You just do it. Exactly. Somebody comes up to you, hey, I know Bob. Bob's a great guy. He works for a great company. He's hauling XYZ for me. But Bob's got an issue and needs help. So I'm going to help Bob because I know Bob. You help your friends, you help the people and that's where all that came from. And then we add all this, like I said, add all this tech to it, which is great. We can
fantastic.
We can reach out further, we can reach out faster. It's great, but the people are they're cutting the corners and not doing the basic principles of this industry, and that's cultivate and build those relationships.
Yeah. It's you know, the tools are great, but I'm pretty damn sure they're not being used correctly. I think that's the
No,
biggest.
they're not. No.
That's the biggest problem out there, because the data that's out there is stronger than it was ever before, and you know they're not using the data or understanding the data correctly, that where they could use it to their benefit by slicing and dicing and understand how it falls into each bucket of the logistics operations, and how do I present it in a way that that's going to benefit them, and then the return would be, of course, benefiting myself. Now you're talking about relationships, and I could not agree with you more, John, because when we didn't have the phones, and we didn't have all that kind of stuff that they had today. When the drivers came in, all right, it's funny, and I say this, not ego driven, but I always hear the word collaboration, and I hear it more and more now than ever before. And I always say, shit, if you look in the dictionary and you look up the word collaboration, the Bodacious Cowboys pictures under the freaking thing, because I was doing that in the 80s when drivers came into my facility, right? Especially on Friday. Donuts, coffee. I had pizza in the afternoon on Fridays. Sat down, asked about their families. Hey, how you doing? What are the road conditions out there, man? What's going on? How you doing? And then I start talking about, hey, you know what? I'm looking for a carrier that would take my stuff from Mahwah, New Jersey, up to Oshkosh, Michigan, right? Because I knew he couldn't do that because he was limited. He was more of a super regional type guy, but he went to truck stops. He talked amongst themselves and stuff like that. Hey, you know what? I know this guy, Jeff Dickinson. He works for Unkyo USA. We're going way back. And you know what? This guy's awesome. This guy gives you coffee when you come in on Fridays. If you come in around noon, he'll have pizza for you and stuff like that. Oh, really? What? Why are you asking? Because he's looking for a driver. He's looking for a company that can handle his Oshkosh stuff. Oh, I'm going to send in so-and-so, and next thing you know, they already know what you're about. That's how those relationships built, because somebody liked the way you did business, and they gave you a recommendation to another person who also wanted to do business with you, and they came knocking at the door, or they gave a call on the landline, and they come in the morning, and then I'd have coffee. Hey, let's go upstairs, let's chat. I mean, that's the way we did it, and we didn't have effing freaking contracts. It was a handshake, and a handshake was platinum. It was, we're going to do business, and we're going to do business for as long as we possibly can, because I trust you and you trust me. And that's the way that we did it. It's so overcomplicated now, especially with fraud and theft and double brokering and all of this and unethical ways of doing business. It's bullshit. It really is. And that translates to being desperate in desperate times in a market such as this, when you've got brokers who are doing unethical things because they have bills to pay, because they don't have the proper training that their brokerage either refuses to give them, or doesn't have something in place to help them be successful.
Right.
It's a major problem, John. It's a major problem.
Well, and even even back then, and I've carried it through today. I mean, when somebody did, when you gave a referral for a company, a broker, a carrier, you didn't just flippantly give it a referral. If the carrier was worth their salt, you referred them. If they were no good, you just kept your mouth shut and kept walking.
Correct.
Because you didn't want to screw that person over that you had a relationship with. So, word of mouth worked both ways. I mean, if you were a bad carrier, and like I said, even in Memphis, Tennessee, everybody in the industry knew it, because everybody talked to everybody else. If you were a good carrier, same thing. Everybody knew it, because everybody talks to everybody else. So you didn't flippantly just throw that referral out there just to be throwing a referral out there. You took care of those people who took care of you, and that meant, if you needed somebody to move a specific lane or whatever. I mean, I would call my former mentors. I would call other
Yep.
people. I would bang stuff off them. I'm like, look, man, I'm setting up this DC and XYZ state, and I need a carrier that can kind of move that. Do you have any suggestions? And if they did, they offered them, and I would go pursue them, and that's how you got the job done.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And the way that and you always heard me say this. My honesty, integrity is first and foremost, and I'm not going to screw anybody over because that's not the way of doing business. And to your point, one time I had a carrier rep come in to me, and I said, "Hey, I'll just use John." I was like, "Hey, John, listen, I've got a shipment that's going to the Upper Peninsula in Michigan. Oh, we can handle that. It's not something that we really do, but I'll complement the account, by helping you kind of move that." And so I brought John in the back room and I said, "John, listen, you're the rep, you know your ORs and the lanes that you're making profits on and the ones that you're not. What's the OR on this move that you want to take on?" He goes, "Oh, it's going to be about 114% to do that, but I'm just trying to help you out." And I went, John, listen, that 114% on that lane that you think that you're trying to complement the account by handling it for me, and I really do appreciate that, that's going to trickle down to the rest of the lanes that you are doing. And when you look at the account, it's going to raise the OR on all the lanes that you're doing business with. So no, I'm not going to give it to you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot that you're willing to do that. You have no idea, but man, I gotta find that.
Right.
I got to find that carrier, that niche carrier that's going to do it for me, that can do it for, at the time was probably a high 80s, low 90s, something, and you save money on that. That's just like, that's why I talk about gaining that knowledge and all of that kind of stuff up front, of finding out where their facilities are, finding out where their lanes are, whether you're transferring from one DC to an RDC to an SRDC, which is super regional distribution center or whatever. You need to find all this kind of stuff and understand how the mechanisms of logistics work and how it will work for you and against you, especially if you're trying to land a customer. But the other things too, and I'll use this as a great example. Now, if I was going to, and I hope the audience out there will take this information and use it when they start pursuing customers, but I'm going to look at an international opportunity. Okay. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Import Yeti. Okay. Import Yeti, list all the companies that are out there and all of their inbound freight that are coming from the Pac Rim, Asia, India, whatever. And it'll tell you the amount of containers that are due in to US ports throughout the whole country. That will tell you what kind of freight that they have, right? So if they've minimized, you're like, well, they got some freight. They may not have a whole hell of a lot of freight. Et cetera, and then I'm going to think about, well, what is the transit times coming from the Pac Rim right now? What kind of problems are they going to run into? So I'm going to go to Marine Traffic Global Ship Tracking Intelligence. All right. I'm going to dig into that kind of stuff. And I'm going to look over the whole spectrum of ships that are going in and outbound of that. And I'm going to look at transit days. I'm going to look at all that different kinds of stuff to try to think of ways that I can minimize or decrease the transit times from the Pac Rim to the US. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the D&B, the Dun and Bradstreet business directory, and start looking about their revenue, or what are they rated? Are they a AAA? Are they a B? Where are they? How is the flow of their funds going? What are the problems in that area? And then I'm going to look at code search from the NAICS Association, or North American Industry Classification System. And I'm going to dig into that company, and I'm going to see affiliates that work directly under this company. Who are they doing business with? who their upstream people, their manufacturers, their vendors, their suppliers, also not just from the upstream, the downstream too, right? Because if you're going to do business with that specific company, and let's say you're in there, you're going to want to knock it out of the park. So how do you minimize the cold calls outbound? You're going to use them as a reference. You're going to use them as a recommendation. You're going to send them and ask them to give you a recommendation, either upstream or downstream, to put your foot in their door because you're killing it at that specific customer. Of course, that's going to take a little bit of time, John. But the the sequence in which you do it before you make that phone call, so you have an understanding where their facilities. You've got Google, you got Zoom information, info.com, you got business Yelp, you got exact data. I could keep on going on and on and on. Some you'd have to, become a member, and there's a minimum cost or whatever. But these are the kind of things that you need to do up front, so that you can identify to gain the knowledge. If you have the experience and you gain the knowledge, you put the two together, you're going to have a high probability of landing a new customer because you're speaking the same damn language as they are, and they appreciate it.
That makes for meaningful conversations, and shippers, if you can perk their ears to hear that, and they know you've done your homework, they know you've worked on it, they know you care, they know you obviously want to do business, then they're gonna be more likely to schedule some time with you. Now, to your point, on the holiday weekend, the day before, your manager's preparing for the tsunami, and the day after, he's cleaning up after the tsunami. So those are probably not two good days. And I mean, I've told people, they call me and it sounds like they've done their homework. It sounds like they care and they put some effort into it. I said, look, man, I can't talk to you right now, but call me back here in a couple of weeks when everything kind of dies down a little bit and operations kind of gets back to normal. And yeah, I'll give you 30 minutes or 15, 20 minutes or whatever. And, you can have those conversations, but a shipper can smell that within the first 2-3 minutes of the call, maybe even less. You can tell who knows their stuff and who doesn't. And the ones who don't know their stuff and they're trying to kind of blow their way through it, you're going to see that, and they're not going to get an opportunity. I mean, because you didn't put the effort in, you didn't put the time in, you didn't make. If you want an ROI, the only way you get an ROI is to invest. You got to invest time, you got to invest energy, you got to invest resources, because you're anticipating an ROI. So if you're not willing to invest that on the front end, it's kind of like playing the lottery without buying a ticket. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's like, where do you want to go, and how are you going to get there? I mean, that's the critical part of it, right? I mean, that all comes down to, it's really easy. It's called the pad. It's called paper, and it's a pad and pen. And the thing with that, because I'm always overthinking, that's why I'm mumbling here. Write down, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What do I need to concentrate on? What vertical do I want to work in? What mode, am I really good at? What's my niche? Define that, then start prospecting by gaining that knowledge that fall into those buckets. Because by doing that, you're going to increase the probability of landing account. Probably not going to happen on the first call, that's for sure. But at least you're going to have that meaningful conversation. I just don't get it sometimes when they don't do all this kind of background checks. It's just, I don't know. It just makes their life difficult.
Let's take a minute and talk about frequency of touches. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you get, these reps, and some of them believe different logic about it. I've got my own opinions. But if you're calling somebody every day and it's going to voicemail, or I always say this, there's a difference between persistence and annoying. Don't be annoying, because I mean, again, it all goes back to time management. And again, I'm going to put relationships on the side of that as well, because that's always important. But there's only a limited set amount of time to do what you have to get done.
Right.
And if you're calling me every day, even if you're just leaving a voicemail, I'm probably not going to listen to the voicemail. I may listen to the first one, maybe the second, if I'm feeling generous, but I don't have time for that. I don't have time for somebody to call me every day. And it's, I know they're saying, hey, I'm being a persistent salesman, and no is, no doesn't mean anything. Well, in my world, no means a lot, because I don't say it unless I mean it. And if you call somebody a couple of times and they don't return your call, then chances of you getting that business are pretty damn slim.
Drop it.
The odds go way down after that. And especially like I told you at the top of the call, I've got people from different industries calling me or emailing me or DMing me that I don't even manage.
Good point.
I'll give you an example. I have talent agencies who reach out to me because they're thinking, hey, he needs a lot of people. Well, my company needs a lot of people, but I personally don't. I got 2 other people and me. So,
Right.
And that's my full team. So, I'm not going to put temp labor in and get rid of them. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, if you don't, and again, it's another reflection of, hey, you didn't do your homework. You think I'm in HR, which I'm not. And you're sending me something. Or forklift maintenance. Okay, forklift maintenance. Well,
Right.
if you did your research, you would find out that we don't own any assets in the distribution market. It's all third party. Okay, it's distribution partners. I don't have any forklifts to maintain. Okay, so it makes you look kind of foolish. I'm sitting there looking at you like, why did you come to me? You didn't do any homework. You just said, hey, this guy's got a distribution network, which I do.
Yeah.
But you didn't determine whether it was brick and mortar or it was third party
Right. Or 4PL.
or 4PL.
Correct.
You didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So like I told you earlier, I don't even answer those emails, because if it's, it's not a fit, it's just, I'm wasting their time. I'm wasting my time. It's double negative right there. Boom.
Yeah, no, I firmly agree with you, and hopefully this comes across correct, because I do mean it in a very meaningful way. But when you're a broker or just a service provider in general, and you go to a smaller company, real small company, the traffic manager, because they're really not logistics managers or supply chain managers, they're more in line with a regular traffic manager position. It's going to be easier to sell to those guys, but you're not going to have a lot of freight and stuff like that because they don't know any better. However, when you start going up the chain, if you're going to a $50,000 a year shipper, and then you start moving to a $50 million one, there's a huge gap. And just so that everybody understands this, is that as you go up to the level and you want to try and attempt to get more revenue into your pipeline, these guys that run 50 million and higher, they're effing rocket scientists. Okay. These guys know that crap because of the complexity like no other. So if you even think that you're going to get a bite from them, you better know your crap, man. It's got to be quality over quantity, no matter which way you look at it. You better know their business inside and out, and don't come across to them and start talking about that you've got the capacity, the best damn rates, and you've got guarantees. They don't want to hear that shit at all.
They
It's
hear
better
it all.
not even.
They hear it all the time. They hear it. They hear it all
They
the
hear it
time.
all the time. They hear it all the time because they know they have a huge piece of like a pie out there that everybody wants a piece of because there's just so much to go around. But the problem with that is that they don't. They don't because the more carriers that they had, like when I was running mine, I had 32 carriers that were in there. It was a waste of freaking time. Okay. And I shrunk it down to 12. Why? Because I had more revenue to share with less, right?
Right.
And now I have more control. Okay. My risk have been mitigated and minimized. All right. So you better be damn good to get one of those 12 slots. All
Right.
right. Because we're not going to add somebody that truly doesn't understand the industry and take that risk that may not pan out and could be complete disaster. So that's why you've got to get under the weeds and understand their operations just as well as they do and be thought provoking. Like I don't sell freight. I sell thought provoking ideas that are going to spark another question. That's how you got to do it with those guys. The lower the guys, easy. If you want to go and take those kind of risk and go to spot market and be here today and not tomorrow, go for it all day long. You know, if you want to take those risks and you want to have that lack of control and not build those long-term business relationships, up to you. I don't
Well,
really care. You
and
know,
and you get some of these traffic managers and logistics managers out here. You know, they have a huge carrier pool, huge,
huge, mega.
and they don't take the time to understand that if you have a carrier in your pool and you're giving them one load every 6 months, they're not going to remember your name when you call. So you got to make sure to your point, you got to make sure you right size your fleet or you right size, excuse me, your carrier pool so that everybody's getting a nice steak. They're not getting overfed, but they're not getting starved either. So you got to make sure you got to have that knowledge and understand that as a shipper. Hey, I only need 12 carriers. That's enough to keep them fed. That'll keep them loyal. That'll keep them dedicated to me. They know their job. They know their business. They have a good working relationship with me. They understand what I'm trying to do out here, and they're going to stay around. And they're not going to, forget your name when your ox gets in the ditch. And rest assured, brother, it'll be in the ditch more times than not. And you need help. They're gonna help you out.
Very true. My really good friend Dale Prax, you know him as well. You know, as brokers, we need to vet who we do business with, and that includes shippers,
Yeah,
carriers, of course.
exactly.
But what I found a lot from my experience is that there's a problem on the shipper side, and I'll explain. On the shipper side, a lot of them are looking to fill a void, but they don't vet the people that they go out to fill that void, right?
Right.
They, and this is for the good brokers out there, the ethical ones, the unethical ones, I don't really care about, but you need to separate the good from the bad. And the only way it is that, you know, a company that they work for may have a bad reputation because of unethical brokers that work for them, but you might have found not a diamond, but a platinum piece of material in the weeds who's really good at their job. That's the person you're going to be doing business with. How do
Right.
you find that out?
Right.
Well, as a shipper, you need to drill into your service provider, your broker, and find out what their background is. What kind of knowledge does this person have? What kind of experience does he have? Does he or she work in my vertical? Do they have the niche that's going to help me be better? How are they going to apply that extra feather in my hat and make me look better than others? because really good brokers and service providers make their clients look better than themselves.
Right.
And if they're successful, you'll be successful. It should be service over profits, not profits over service. And the first thing that you should bring into mind in a conversation is a safety first mindset. That
Right.
saves a lot of money. A lot of people don't understand that point of view there. But if you have a safety first mindset, there's a trickle down effect that applies and is extremely beneficial and helps operation be more efficient than you ever thought of.
That's right.
Truly. And that's a big problem in the industry. And those who understand and have that experience and that knowledge will understand that, why I'm saying that. But
Right.
it's very minimal at best who do. Because I've asked that question, John. I said, what are your 3 top priorities as a service provider? Not one mentioned safety first. There's all this other kind of stuff. And it's just like, how do you do business?
It's
How
always
do you effectively do business and still be irresponsible about your fellow Americans and people that these trucks who are driving 80,000-pound missiles on the highway, right, could take out a family of 4? You want that on your shoulders. That people don't understand that. Why? Because they put profits before service and understanding and not considering how important safety first mindset is. I'm going to talk about that at the Broker Carrier Summit in Fort Worth, October 24th. So, I mean, it's critical to your success as a service provider. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, safety is always 9 times out of 10 is an afterthought. It's usually after something really, really bad happens.
Exactly. And some people take the stance, John, that, it never happened to me. I never saw it happen. And then a family member dies. It always takes a effing catastrophic event, unfortunately, to change a person's mind. That's why you always got to look at the what ifs. I'm a what ifs person. I have a proactive mindset. I look at the probabilities of what kind of problems are going to happen in logistics. And there's a high probability because you get blindsided in this business always. So you have to be on your toes, not on your heels, on your toes constantly all the time, and try to outthink the thinkers, because that's what's important in the industry, and you can save lives.
Yep. 100%. 100%. I mean, it's, I like everything we've talked about today. I think everything we've talked about has been critical for people to have success. Most of the things that we've discussed today, surprisingly are very foundational.
Yes.
I mean, we're not speaking calculus here, guys. We're 8th grade math in it, and sometimes that's the easiest way to do it. Is just put yourself, just common sense. Just logic.
That's not common. That's not so common nowadays, John.
That's a rare commodity these days. Logic. Relational skills. How do you interact with other human beings? You would find that I've seen people, they go to the bar and have a beer with their buddy, and act completely different than if they came and talked to me about letting them haul my freight. And I'm like, well, he's a human being. I'm a human being. The only thing missing is the beer. So why wouldn't you talk to me the same way you talk to him? It's you come off as stiff, and you come off as
just
not transparent, and you look fake. And I've had people, I'm talking to them, and they're freak, they're nervous as all get out. I don't bite.
Really?
Not anymore. I gave it up. But you just talk to me like I'm just Joe Schmo. Show some respect, have a little humility, but act like a human being and not a stick. I don't need to work with sticks. I need to work with human beings, and I need to know if I can build trust with you and have open, transparent conversations with you. And even the bad stuff, if it's something really, really bad, then we're going to have to sit down and figure it out, because we've got to understand the problem, and then we got to put something together to work through the problem.
Yeah, don't bullshit along the way. They're gonna catch you. They're gonna catch you with your pants down around your ankles. I mean,
Yeah.
to sum this up, what you're saying, John, is listen, John, you're a shipper. I'm a broker. These are the kind of conversations that you should just be able to freely roll off your tongue and have these kind of conversations and still get along. If you want to build a partnership that John was talking about earlier, in order to do that, as a function of the relationships, is that you got to agree to disagree and still be partners and friends, and be willing to take a hit and also give one on both sides. That's how long-term business relationships happen. And even though John's business, and I say this a lot, if I wanted to, I could approach John and I could have a decent conversation with him, but we have conversations, and no, I don't want to do his business because that's not my niche. Even though I worked in it, it's not something that I want to pursue. It's not my vertical. Yes, I could do it, but it's not my vertical, and I just don't want to do it. But those are the conversations. Just because, John could be a great mentor, or he could be a referral. If you have a conversation like John and I have, and say we're in a bar and you give him, your business card and stuff like that, if you're having a decent conversation like we're having here, why wouldn't John say, you know what, this guy can't help me, but man, is he damn good? Is he damn good in flatbed service? And I know you are looking for flatbed guys. That's how it works. Those are the really good transactional kind of things of sharing knowledge and giving and taking. Maybe John's looking for a carrier, and I'm not the one for him, but I know a carrier that could help him out because he does it all day long, 24/7, 365. That's the type of guy that John would want in his thing, and he's 99% on time all the time.
And you've already built that foundation of trust with that individual. So when that individual hands you a company that can potentially help you, it's a good deal. He's not just handing you something that, hey, I found this in the trash. Here, take this. You trust him, and he's going to do what he thinks is best for you, and try to help you out and look out for your best interest. So yeah, you're going to pursue that referral because Bob told you it was a good company.
Yep.
And it may not be in his area or needs it or anything. I mean, the networking events that I attend, and you attend a whole lot more than I do, but one of the reasons we set up the Nashville Transportation Club is to network. Our thing is network, educate, and empower. And a lot of when we go to these events, I mean, we do a lot of happy hours in between our big events, and it's just networking, and it's learning what people are good at, learning what people do, and sharing that knowledge and that information. And that includes referrals. It's like, hey man, hey John, do you know a good carrier that can haul XYZ lane? Well, I got a guy over here. He's over there, and he's domiciled in that area. He can probably help you. And you exchange it. And I mean, we even getting into the more techie part of the world. I do soft intros on LinkedIn for people. If they if I know somebody in my network and they say, hey John, wondering if you could introduce me to so and so, and they're good at what they do. They're checking all the boxes. They're doing their homework. Blah blah blah. Then I've got no problem. I'll send a DM and soft intro you. And the person on the other end of that DM who knows me quite well knows, hey, John's not going to send me something if he doesn't believe in that individual, that individual is going to be able to support me and help me and make me look good. He wouldn't send me a rock when I need a gold nugget. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that's what these events are for. And that's also, these events are for relationship building.
Yes.
You get to, hey, I know Bob, but Bob brought his friend Stan, and I don't know Stan, but I know Bob, and Bob wouldn't be hanging around some guy that was, sleazy. So I'm gonna go walk over here and talk to Bob, see if he can get me the intro to me to Stan, and maybe there's a way somewhere down the road that Stan and I have synergies, our companies have synergies, and I'm gonna pick up the phone, call Stan, and say, hey, it's me, Bob's friend. I need you to come over and let's talk some business and see if we can't do some business together.
Yeah, every time I go to the broker carrier summit, when you talk about trust and honesty and integrity, numerous times where I was talking, let's just say you were there and I was talking to you, and I know another guy, and we got on the conversation, I would walk away from him, grab the person, I would make the soft intro, like you just said, and then I would say, this guy here, he can help you out, man, and walk away. You don't have to be part of that conversation.
No.
Remove yourself. Hey, hope you guys have a really good conversation and carry on someplace else. I've done that several times. That's how relationships are built, and they'll do the same thing for you because what you did for them.
Yeah,
one hand washes the other. If you're going to be a prick about it, they're going to remember that. And forget it. You're not going to get any referral recommendation from that dude.
The only thing I do differently before I walk off, Jeff, is I tell the guy, don't believe anything he tells you about me.
Yeah, I do that too. if he tells you this and everything, believe it. All right. No, seriously, one in this industry, even though it's a $1 trillion industry, one hand really washes the other. Partnerships are key in developing you as a person, developing you as a corporate person, a business, a service provider. I could just go on and on and on. Don't be afraid to share knowledge and say, I don't want to give up that, what I know, because that's going to help others, and that's going to, not be that helpful for myself. Bullshit. Just go out there and share it, help other people to be successful. You have no idea until you do it, until you see that person bloom and grow like no tomorrow, and say to yourself, I helped that person be there, man. I feel good about it, but don't push it in their face. Say, because, you got there because of me. Bullshit. Just walk away and watch their growth. Just
celebrate their success.
You don't
celebrate their success.
Yeah, you don't need that kind of pat on the back. If they want to thank you, that's up to them. There's no force thing on this thing. But
no,
be out there and help others be better than yourself. How about that?
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that, my friend.
It's together we rise, and that's exactly how I look at it. And I mean, I'll be on media, and if I see somebody just really rock starring it out, I'll shoot them a DM, man. I said, hey, man, just really really enjoying your success, and you're knocking it out of the park, and just don't stop.
Yeah. If you have any other questions, if I can help you in any other way, man, you got my phone number. Here's my personal cell, or just shoot me a DM. If I can't answer it, I'll find the answer to that question, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. But you must realize I'm waiting on this other individual to answer my question. So as soon as I hear a response from him, I'll give you a call, or I'll shoot you a DM. Real easy. How long did that take? 20 seconds?
Yeah. It's nothing.
It's nothing. It's nothing out of your day. Just be a good human being, man. That's what the industry is lacking a lot. We talked earlier about scumbags and all these other unethical people that are destroying the industry and thinking about themselves more than anybody else out there. Come on, guys, grow up, man. Share knowledge, help your fellow logistician, your fellow broker, carrier, friend, whomever.
Yeah, you put that out there. You put that positive out there, that positive energy out there. It's going to come back to you tenfold. It's not if it's going to come back to you, it's when, because it's inevitable, and you're always going to get back more than you put out.
Don't expect anything in return.
Yeah,
give all you want, and don't expect anything in return.
and
Don't even think about it.
it'll still come back. You know, I've done it for years. It always happens like that. You know,
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Well,
the more,
John, this was a great conversation. One of the best episodes I think that we've had. You know, we always tell it the way it is, whether people want to hear it or not. But that's what the show is all about, right?
yep.
And the thing is that if we can help just one person, we've done our job.
That's
So,
exactly right.
So until next week's episode, which is episode 7, going by pretty quick. Make sure if you like this this podcast, share it, like it. We appreciate everybody that's watched it. Until next time on this old Doghouse Logistics podcast, everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.